Okay, we still got more folks coming in. But Andrew, why don't you take it away and do the introductions? And we will start the live stream as well.
Okay, sounds good. Real quickly, just to ELPCO, a little bit about ELPCO. We are a local city-sanctioned community organization. We represent the residents and businesses in the East Liberty Park area of Salt Lake City. The area that we cover is roughly defined by the boundaries of 700 East to 1300 East and 800 South to 1700 South. And we meet on the fourth Thursday of every month. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, you can reach us at elpcoslc@gmail.com. Quickly, I'll introduce our board members. I actually can't see like a full view of everybody right now, so I'll just call them out here. And if some aren't quite here yet, hopefully I'll just let you know all their names. We have Daryl High, who's our co-chair. Jason Stevenson, of course, our fearless leader and co-chair. Representing the historic Gilmer area, we have Rebecca Huber and William Huff. The East Emerson area, Jeff Larson. West Emerson, we have Bradley Shoup. East Liberty Park is represented by myself, Andrew Stone. West of East is Christina Robb. We currently do not have a secretary. That position is vacant. Our 9th and 9th business liaison is Nancy Phillip. Treasurer Ann Weaver. Street Festival Coordinator Jen Bloom. Michael Alosi is an at-large member, and Jonathan Folk, also an at-large member.
Thank you very much, Andrew. You went through that so quickly and efficiently. I had barely enough time to start us on Facebook Live, but we are now there. So you are now all famous on Facebook. Thank you all for coming. We've got a great turnout tonight, as well as a very good meeting agenda, I think, covering a range of issues. And we will continue to meet also next month and into June. So if this is your first meeting, please check back with us on the fourth Thursday of the month. We've always got something interesting and local to talk about. Let's jump ahead into our agenda, but I do want to let folks know that we do have something very special at the end, and that is a farewell to Daryl High, who has been our ELPCO co-chair for 12 years. He looks only a day over 16, so you know, he started young at 4. But Daryl has been such a community asset that a lot of folks in our community wanted to record videos and tributes to recognize his service and contribution. So that will come towards the end of the meeting, so please do stick around. It's pretty special. A lot of ELPCO history, some special guest appearances. I sound like a TV show host, but it's going to be a good thing. So please do stick around. And let us now start off with Salt Lake City Fire Department. If they are here, it looks like they are, please go ahead and unmute and give us an update. And then we'll head into the Salt Lake City Police Department next.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here today. Can everybody hear me all right? Just a nod of the head's great. Perfect. Well, thanks again for letting us be here. We've missed being able to meet with you guys in person, and we hope to be able to get there again someday soon. If the meeting format stays in the Zoom format like this is great. We love being able to be part of this. Thanks again for the invitation. We want to, as a fire department, give our thanks to Daryl for his friendship and kindness that he's always showed to us as a fire department. We wish him well in his future endeavors and in his retirement with his kids and grandkids. Just a few items from the Salt Lake City Fire Department. First of all, I'll share with you a COVID update that we have. Currently, approximately 80% of the fire department has been vaccinated. We're striving to push that number higher. We hope to get there, but any number is a good number at this point. So 80% is where we're sitting. We're trying to do our part to be safe and to make everybody else safe that we interact with when we come into contact with them in the public. And we need to ask your guys' help as community members. If you call and ask for assistance, there's a few things that we would like and that we would need to make everybody feel a little bit better. If you do call, or if you know of somebody that has called, pass this information along. We'd like our patients moved outside if possible. or into a large room where there's plenty of space for us to distance ourselves and to continue to be safe around everybody. We ask family and friends and bystanders to give us some distance, give us some space, so that our crews can work and move around and not compromise the health and safety of everybody around us. We will continue to be wearing masks whenever we're in public and whenever we're interacting with the public to do our part. And other PPE that you might see us wearing is a device that we wear over our heads that's a big, it looks like a respirator. It's called a PAPR. You might have heard of that word being used a little bit. It supplies clean, filtered air and prevents whatever germs, if we have any, from getting to you, and whatever is around us from coming into us. So don't be alarmed by the different things that you'll see us wearing as we're interacting with patients on medical scenes and on accident scenes and the such. It's just we're trying to be safe to make sure everybody else can be safe as well. Sorry, I've got some notes I'm referring to here. Make sure I get all the information to you guys. Even though as a fire department, we have suspended all of our in-person activity with the public, such as station tours and school visits and other social events, we still want to be involved with the community. If you want to be involved with us, we like that. We really like that. You can visit our website. It's slc.gov/fire. I'll put that link in the chat function here in just a few minutes. You can go and find videos that talk about the things that we do in the fire department. You can learn about our stations. You can learn about what it's like to be a firefighter on the job, things like that. You can also find information about what the city is doing at this time with the pandemic to be safe, and any types of, sorry about the background noise, any types of questions you might have, you can find answers to there. Once again, that's slc.gov/fire. At this time, the fire department is also partnering with the American Red Cross to promote fire safety. You can contact the Red Cross and schedule a free visit to have a member of the Red Cross visit your home and talk to you about fire safety and other types of safety in the home. They can help you plan escape routes. They can help you run fire drills. They can help you install and test smoke detectors and answer any other questions that you might have dealing with fire safety in your home. Again, that's a free visit from the Red Cross. And I'll provide the website for that in the chat as well. It's redcross.org, and you follow the link to, there will be a tab that you can click for scheduling that appointment. Once again, it's a free appointment if you're interested, and you can pass that word around. It's for anybody in Salt Lake City. Thanks for your time. Thanks for letting me give you some updates on what we're doing. And let me just say happy Earth Day today. I know that the things that we can do in our lives as members of the community to save energy, to promote clean energy, to be good stewards of the land is a good thing. And if we as a community can push forward on being better stewards, we will have a better place to hand on and hand off to those who come after us. So once again, thanks for letting us as the fire department have a few minutes. I'll stick around for a little bit. If anybody has questions, you can just ask them in the chat section. I'll answer some questions. And I will turn the time back over to Jason. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you, Salt Lake City Fire Station 5. We appreciate your update, of course, everything that you do, both that we see and hear and stuff that we don't know about that you guys are still doing in our community, which is great. So my kids love it whenever those trucks and engines roll by. So, but we know you're out working. So let's head over to Salt Lake City Police. Detective Nathan Meinzer is here to give us an update from the other side of the public safety building and what's been going on in ELPCO in terms of public safety.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Detective Meinzer. I cover districts 5, 6, and 7. And I'm all about having the community talk to me on things that you're worried about, concerned about, because I see great value in working with the citizens and trying to work on those long-term problems that you guys see. So this month, I went through our stats to kind of compare to last month, because last month I had kind of talked just about some that I was a little bit worried about, for instance, like domestic violence cases and things like that. So good news, our stats are looking great this month. So we had 47 reports total that were written for the area. And the stats that I pulled are specifically just for your neighborhood. It's not the whole entire district. I want you guys to be able to see your unique neighborhood compared to everywhere else. So with those domestic violence cases, there's only been 2 this last month, which I'm jumping for joy on. So thank you for checking on neighbors. Thank you for trying to, take a breath if you get frustrated. I do appreciate everyone looking out for each other, because community is really where it's at. So thank you everyone for looking out for each other. So one thing I did want to bring up is our car prowls. So in January, we had 12 car prowls that month. In February, we had 4 car prowls, and that was because we had done a whole bunch of stuff to try and be super proactive to try and cut them down. And we were very successful. We were down to 4. This month, we're up to 9. So I need your guys' help. Anytime you guys see suspicious activity in terms of someone looking into vehicles, someone trying door handles, things like that, please always give us a call. Sometimes it takes us a while to get there because it's always depending on the priority of the calls and how busy our officers are. So even if we don't get to come out, just calling and letting us know is good information to have, because we do track every single call for service, and that does get crunched down in. And when we try and look for suspects to try and link different cases together, it is very helpful to kind of see like, oh, okay, I've got this case over here, and there's a video from a neighbor who's down the street, and they reported suspicious activity. Their doorbell camera got a good little description of it, and kind of helps us piece those together. So please always keep reporting any suspicious activity. The second side of things is always try and make a habit to make sure you lock your car doors. On average, a lot of the cars that do get broken into are that opportunity crime, the opportunist kind of person walking by, checking every single door handle, trying to remember to put any cords like charging cords, AV cords where you connect to your phone to listen to music. Try and put those in your glove box, keep them hidden away. Those are kind of some helpful little tips to take care of your cars and hopefully not let people get in. We did have 4 traffic accidents in the neighborhood, and the majority of those are just right along our west side border on 7th East. So when I looked into the cases, it didn't really look like it was any of our residents that I could tell. So I'm glad that you guys are all safe when you're driving, but just keep your eye out along 7th East. There's a lot of fast traffic there. So stats wise, we're looking really good. I did want to bring up our 9th and 9th block party coming up for September 18th. Did you guys want me to try and organize like a bike rodeo, some explorers, maybe get to meet the Liberty Patrol captain and lieutenant, myself, and some officers? Is that something that would be interesting for the group?
Yeah.
What do folks think? Thumbs up?
Absolutely.
Sound good?
Thumbs up.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome.
I think that would be appreciated. Thank you for recommending that. Yep, we do have the street festival coming up in September.
Perfect.
So,
And do we have any
Great.
questions? And I'll leave my information in the chat. Never hesitate to reach out to me, okay?
I have a question. There was what appeared to be a big accident on the corner of 7th East and 13th South, I believe last Saturday morning. What happened? It looked very strange.
So I'd have to pull up the case specifically, but that is one of the traffic accidents that I was referring to. There were 2 different accidents there that I was like, oh, okay, well, 7th East and 13th South seems to be the corner. But I could really quick look it up and I could shoot you a message and kind of give you details on that if that would be okay. I'll just have to pull the case up real fast.
Thank you.
Was that the one where the motorcycle was?
That's probably the one that I think that she's referring to, because there was a fatal accident right there in that corner.
Oh, that's
So I just wanted to confirm that it was the same one.
Mhm.
But I guess I'll tell everybody. So yeah, so there was a motorcycle accident on that corner, 7th East, 13th South. The driver of the motorcycle was struck by a vehicle and ended up dying because of the accident. But I will Judy, I'll go check just to confirm that it's the same one for you.
Great.
So please keep your eyes open for motorcycles. It's very dangerous for drivers of motorcycles. I used to have a motorcycle and I stopped. I sold it because I almost got run over by a semi. I was like, people can hear me. Like, I'm wearing my helmet. I'm being safe. And I've ridden motorcycles for years. And no, they really don't. Thank
They're
you,
bigger
Amy.
than you.
Yeah, they very, very much bigger than me.
Any other questions for Detective Meinzer? I guess I had one quick follow-up, Detective, and that is, there were some incidents of street racing happening, and specifically in downtown Salt Lake and the west side of Salt Lake. It came up at the Glendale Community Council meeting this week. Can you kind of address that or talk about where street racing tends to occur, the times of day, anything that we can kind of be a little bit more aware of
Yeah,
what's
absolutely. So street racing typically has been occurring mostly on the weekend nights, and it's typically out west down by the warehouses. And that's kind of been something that's been occurring for years. And Detective Oliver is actually over that area, and he's actually been working overtime shifts there for a long time, trying to do as much as he can. So before there was a fatal accident of the street racers, but before that, we actually, as a department, we had started renting large metal plates that are approximately like 8 feet wide by I think 11 or 12 feet long that you see for construction. And we had been placing them down. And that actually has been a great help. We did end up ending that contract because we didn't have more money to pay for it. And we have put in a request to City Council, and we've asked for, I believe it's 7 sets, and it's 2 per set. And it's $4,500 per plate to purchase those. But the city is looking to do that type of mitigation for street racing. So right now, I actually in District 6, I have a neighborhood. They have what's called, it's not Gravity Hill, but it's Butterfly Hill. And there's a lot of people that try and race and kind of catch that little air, and you get a little butterfly in your stomach. And so we're looking at trying to maybe get a grant to just get 1 plate right off the bat. But I think that that's the route that we're going to try and go when it does come to street racing, where we're having lots of fast traffic, because if they try and go really fast over those big plates, it will damage their vehicles, which can obviously be dangerous, but the danger to them is less danger than it's putting to our citizens, especially because, as you see, we had a fatality from that street racing incident. So it's kind of a really big deal. Yes, Andrew Stone, question in the chat is, if we come across street racing, is it worth it to call in and report it? As a bicyclist, I do come across them now and then. Absolutely, yes. It is very important that you do report it. And I know a lot of people right now, they don't want to report it because either A, they don't want to waste the time to report it, or B, they think that maybe we're too busy or we don't care or it'll take too long for us to get there. Always report it. Even if we can't get there in time, it is helpful for us to try and track it. And right now we are dealing with a lot of underreporting where crime's occurring and we're not being told for whatever the case may be. And it's kind of hurting us to try and help respond appropriately. Because we do try and be proactive, but a lot of that proactive work comes when citizens kind of say, hey, we're noticing this and we're getting calls for service, and we try and say, okay, let's try and be proactive and add more bodies to the area. Let's create an operation, see what we can do to try and help mitigate this issue. So it's kind of like a 2-part thing to be proactive, if that answers those questions.
Great, thanks for taking that. Great question, Andrew, as well. Detective Meinzer, your contact information is on the back of our agenda, but would you mind putting it into the chat as well so that folks know that you can always reach out to the detective, and he's great about responding. His job is to work with our community and solve issues and problems. So we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'll put my info in the chat.
Okay, next up, and we are actually really close to being on time on this agenda, which is great, is a pretty cool idea that came up early in the year. We want to kind of find out how neighborhoods can work on their own projects to improve their quality of life, tackle issues, come together to do this. And there's a great example that happened over in, trying to think of the neighborhood, I guess we call it East Emerson. It's the neighborhood represented by Jeff Larson. So I want to turn it over to Jeff to introduce the panelists and the kind of the discussion that we're going to have.
Thanks, Jason. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Great. I don't want to spoil too much of JoJo's presentation and all the work that she's done. All the credit is due to her. I got a flyer on my door about 1.5 years ago, and I signed up and have been super supportive of this project. For those of you who are familiar with the Mcclellan Trail, that runs right through the street that JoJo and I live on, and 5 others. And JoJo and a couple other neighbors took the initiative to recognize a problem that was multiplied by the existence of the Mcclellan Trail with speeding up and down our very steep streets. And they approached the city, and I'll let JoJo tell you more about how she went about that and where the project is at now and what we're all excited to see happen over the very near future in cooperation with the city. And thanks again, JoJo, for being here tonight, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts and where we're at.
Thanks, Jeff. So I'm JoJo Liu. I'm a neighbor of Jeff's, and I'm here with my next door neighbor, Melanie Williamson. She and I really were the ones to spearhead this project, and actually it builds on efforts that Melanie had started years before. My family only moved to our block in 2017. Melanie and her husband have been here for a couple of decades, and so they've recognized this issue for a long time, and we've really worked together to move forward on this. And I also want to recognize that Tom Millar, our transportation planner from the Salt Lake City Department of Transportation, that has worked so collaboratively with us, is also here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Are you seeing that in the presentation view, or the one where you have like the little guy on the right?
You're in presentation. You're looking.
Okay, awesome. So this is called the Mcclellan Trail Traffic Calming Project. And this is a project that will bring traffic calming features to the Mcclellan Trail neighborhood, which are the 6 streets, which those are Harrison, Browning, Roosevelt, Emerson, Kensington, Bryan, which cross the Mcclellan Trail between 11 East and 1300 East. You might already be familiar with the geography or the layout of our streets, but basically it's obviously a very steep hill coming down 1300. And this has always been a problem in terms of speeds. The avenues are also quite wide, especially at Harrison and at Browning. But then the neighborhood really felt that the safety issues were compounded when the Mcclellan Trail was built. So in a lot of ways, obviously, we're super lucky to have it. It's an amazing asset. But the way that that trail is laid out, it gives walkers and bikers and families a sense of false security that you're sort of on this protected trail, when in fact, you know, it's being crossed by sometimes traffic that's moving pretty quickly. So this is the issue we had. And Melanie, I'm going to hand it over to you for you to talk first about some of the efforts that you had worked on before this really got going in 2018.
Sure. So hello, everybody. Again, my name is Melanie Williamson, and JoJo and I are next door neighbors, but we're also co-chairs of this committee that was hatched from a group of little kids, which is really quite great. As JoJo mentioned, my husband and I moved into our home on Browning in 1991. We were fresh out of college. This was going to be our 5-year home. We're obviously still here. We like it a lot. But mostly the people on our street were older people, and they'd raised their families here, but there weren't any kids on the street. And when we moved in, I mean, obviously the speeding was immediately obvious to us. And I actually had a neighbor who her solution was to sit on the front porch, and when she heard a car coming down the hill, she'd kick a soccer ball into the road, hoping that that people might think that there was a child coming, you know, shortly thereafter, and would slam on their brakes. And it wasn't a solution. Nonetheless, we did reach out to the city at that point, and we asked about speed bumps. We got bounced around. They said, maybe you need the transportation department, maybe you need engineering. I think we talked to the police department several times because it is a speeding issue. And really the crux of the matter is that a speed bump wasn't going to be feasible because we are such a steep street that snowplows are like first on. This is where they come, and snowplows and speed bumps don't really mix. In the meantime, there were a couple of pretty big things. A guy was coming down Browning Avenue going way too fast. He lost his brakes. He went straight through 11th East and slammed into the Utah AIDS Foundation. They just fixed that a couple of years ago, and this probably happened, I'm going to say 2007. I heard it. It was scared the crap out of me. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And to my knowledge, no kids, humans, adults have been hurt. A neighbor dog was hit and killed, which was really quite sad. You know, and we'll try to be pleasant and yell and say, hey, slow down. Can you please slow down? And of course we get flipped off, and people speed up. And what interesting thing we learned is that people don't just speed coming down the hill, they also speed going up the hill because they want to make sure they can make it up the hill. So as life happens, some of the older people that were in the neighborhood moved on. A lot of kids started moving in, like JoJo and her family and the family next door and across the street. And all of a sudden there's all these kids, and it's an incredibly vibrant neighborhood. And it's like the idyllic childhood home or childhood neighborhood. You know, they can run across the street to their friend's house. They run in packs. No one's really sure whose house they're playing at the moment, but you know, the parents all know they're safe, but they have to cross the street to get to their friend's house. And, you know, we tried things like the signs that say drive like your kids live here, and put up cones and those kinds of things. And as JoJo mentioned, when they built the trail, it gave us hope. We're like, okay, well, maybe they're going to do this improvement. Maybe they'll do raised hump or something. And we probably should have fought harder at that point and just didn't. But nonetheless, the kids really kind of took the lead, and they're like, look, we're sick of this. And they decided that they wanted to go around and get a petition signed. And they had a hashtag, bump for Browning, give us a bump. And that first day on August 25th, I think, 2018, we got 33 signatures. They set up on the trail itself to get some of the trail users to sign the petition. And at that point, a local news station came. And I got a link to the news story, and I sent it to our then city councilwoman, Erin Mendenhall, and I asked for her advice. And she in turn said, there's a program called CIP, which is Capital Improvement Project, or excuse me, Community Improvement Project, I think. Maybe Tom can correct me on that. But we would be best off, and I have to stress this because I believe this is one of the main reasons we were successful. We would be best off if we made it about the community and not just about Browning Avenue. And because there are 5 other streets that are kind of in the same boat, if we could find a way to propose something for all of the streets, including the users of the trail, that we'd have a better chance. And honestly, like I said, I think that is the thing that made us successful in getting some action. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to JoJo and let her talk about where we've gone since that wonderful August 18 day.
Sure. So for those of you who are not familiar with CIP, the Capital Improvement Project, it's for neighborhood and community initiated capital improvement projects. I think it has to have a cost of somewhere between $50,000 and $500,000. And it's funded things that I'm sure you know and love, like the trail system at Wasatch Hollow, things for the Wasatch Community Gardens. And so as a result of us reaching out to Erin Mendenhall and her getting us connected with Department of Transportation, they agreed to partner with us. You need to essentially be sponsored, matched up with a city department to work with you on the application. And so we entered into the cycle where the applications were due. We got really good timing because, you know, we did our petition drive in August, and it just so happened to be that the applications, when they're always due, I think, is in October. And so we got our application in, and we also canvassed the entire 6 streets. We left letters, templates of letters of support to every single house. We left letters of support with businesses. We reached out to Emerson Elementary, presented to the PTA, presented to the SCC. And I think in the end, we had over 200 letters in support from neighbors, from businesses, from community organizations, from ELPCO. Jason, I think, turned around his letter, like in a day. And so a big part of that is that we were able to demonstrate that there was really profound neighborhood support that really recognized this critical need. And another part of it was that we really were proposing something that had a neighborhood-wide impact. We were also lucky because we were able to, and Tom could speak a little bit more about this, we were able to align what we were asking for with things that were already in master plans. So, we were able to talk about how this helped out with linkages to other bike paths and other forms of off-street kind of pathways. And there might have been other ways that we were able to sort of align with why this amplified what the city already wanted to do in other ways. Melanie and I presented to the CIP board. So it's a volunteer community board. They listened to all of the different proposals, and then they make recommendations to the mayor as to what should be included in the mayor's budget. After we were recommended by the CIP board and included in the mayor's budget for the full amount that was asked for, which was $350,000, we followed the entire process up to the city council. I should have enlarged that photograph. We further exploited our children by making them testify or actually make public comment at the city council meeting. They did a great job, and the project was approved and funded. So that was way back in fall of 2019. Just an example of one of our letters from Hub and Spoke. So since approval and funding, the momentum has really shifted from, well, so this started out as, neighborhood initiated. We put a lot of work into this. Since it was a kid's idea, we made them, drop letters and communications at everybody's doorstep. And then after it was funded, it became much more of a partnership with the Department of Transportation, because obviously they're the ones tasked to actually implement and construct and design this. So Tom, our transportation designer, really wanted to continue to build on this momentum where there was really good neighborhood communication and community engagement. And so we identified a street captain, or sometimes two street captains, for every single one of the streets that were affected, because as Tom was going to design and wanted feedback on design, he wanted to be able to have a touch point on every single street. And so we identified those street captains. We've been having regular meetings. We organized masked walkabouts in early December 2020, where Tom, for 6 evenings in a row, walked the entire length between 1100 and 1300 with anyone who wanted to participate, so that they can describe what they saw as the issues, what people wanted in terms of interventions, the style of intervention, the location of interventions. And then we made a public survey available to everyone so that they can, through a smart sheet or a Google sheet, indicate also their feelings about location and design. So some of this, the timelines, it's taken a really long time. I think part of it has to do with the construction of 1300 East, because that was really going to affect, obviously, the traffic coming down from 1300 East. And it was going to affect the extent to which we were going to get any usable data in terms of testing. And so testing did not actually occur until just this past January. And Tom has just recently gotten the results of that, has shared it with the street captain, and now he's in the process of design. And so here, Tom, if you're here, I'm actually going to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about some of the remaining items here.
Thanks, JoJo. That was an amazing presentation. It makes me happy that I'm involved to see the whole recap. I wish that my baby didn't just go to sleep, because she's the physical manifestation of this project.
Oh yeah, I forgot that part.
I was at JoJo's house talking with JoJo and her husband Chris and Melanie and her husband. We were talking about the basics of traffic calming and how design affects behavior, and I got a call and I ignored it, and then I got another call and I looked and it was my wife, and she said, "Hey, we're going to the hospital and we're having a baby." So every time I this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but every time I look at my baby, I think, wow, it has been a long time since this project got funded, and we still haven't built anything. I think that the length of this process since it's been funded has been really beneficial, because it has been democracy in action, and democracy is inherently slow. If every planner wanted all of his or her designs to be implemented exactly as they wanted, they would have to be king, and we know that we don't want any kings. So we've had this wonderful iterative process where we've made sure that we're touching back with the community as often as possible, that we're having, as Jojo described, these very good experiences with the community where they can, instead of just writing it down and sending it in an email, they can walk on the street, they can feel the street, they can communicate that to the city staff. So now that we have the results back from that public engagement, as well as the quantitative data that we collected in the winter, we'll be designing a few different elements, design elements along each of those 6 streets. We will mail back again to all, I think it was 450 or 500 addresses, both residents and property owners that don't live there. We will mail back to those same people proposed designs for each street and have them provide their feedback. And then once we receive that feedback and make some changes to design, we will bid the project and then we'll construct it. And that's how we're gonna spend the $350,000 that is really everybody's money, that's gonna go to improve these streets. And I think it'll be a really good model for our the city's livable streets program, which is going to be a more holistic look at every local 25 mile per hour street in the city, and being able to duplicate this process again in a much shorter timeline to achieve quality results and slow the speeding by design.
Thanks, Tom. So just in terms of what we've learned from this, what might be takeaways for other neighbors and other community groups that are interested in doing something similar. First, I would say that data is always going to be your friend. So I forgot this part. So Aaron Mendenhall linked us up with the Department of Transportation. And part of the reason why they were so receptive to working on this is because they had historical data from our streets, all the years in which folks were complaining and they would put out those testing strips or whatever. They keep all that data. And so when we first met with John Larson, the department head of the Department of Transportation, pulled it all up in this dashboard. And it was very clear that there was a problem on our 6 streets. And that was sort of, what got this started and why they were willing partners to work together on the CIP project. The second is what I mentioned before is, connecting your particular concerns to a wider neighborhood impact. I think that's really critical. I think that's really what allowed us to get funded. It was really humbling to see all the other CIP presentations, such great ideas, amazing, amazing things to help our communities. And not everything gets funded. So, it is pretty competitive at that level. And I think that, having traffic calming is obviously a concern for everybody. I think it is going to be very, very difficult to get traffic calming, built, at least through the CIP project funding, if it's only going to impact one street. I would also recommend tracking the funding all the way through. Your neighborhood representatives, your city council people are your representatives and your advocates. So, if you feel like you need a little push in the budgetary process, that's what they're there for. That's who you can reach out to. And that's certainly the way that our representatives helped us out in this project. And then I would say that you have to go into this interested in wider collateral benefits than just what you're trying to build, because it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time and patience, but we've gotten so much out of this even though we don't have anything physical, we have such a strong sense of being stitched into our neighborhood. We know so many people now. We know everyone, honestly. We walk up and down the Mcclellan Trail and, you know, on our evening walks, and we know dozens of people as a result of this process. And so that's been an incredible thing, an incredible asset to have. And that's it.
What a fantastic story. Yes, thank you, Jojo, Melanie, Tom, for telling us about what will happen and what has happened on the Mcclellan Trail. That's really cool just to know the efforts you put into it. Any questions for Jojo, Melanie, or Tom?
I'd like Jojo to share one more, maybe Tom too, just about some of the features that we will see built and some of the things that they're looking at. Because as we did those street walks, I thought that was very interesting, and some of the options that are there to make a difference in this.
So I wish I didn't include some of the pictures. So Tom actually, you know, he put up cones to test out some of the interventions. So I think one that clearly will get built because there's just universal support for it, as well as it's what the priority is at the actual intersection, right, where walkers are going across the Mcclellan Trail. The streets on every street, all 6 streets will narrow significantly right at the trail crossing. And that way, walkers coming out, you get a buffer, right? You're like out into the streets for a fair way where, you know, but the car still can't get to you yet. So it gives them a chance to see you. You don't have to like, we also tell our kids heads first, you know, you have to like lean your head out, you know, before your body comes out. You know, it will naturally be the case that, you know, drivers will see your entire body before they would ever have a chance to hit you. But Tom, I'll let you talk a little bit more about some of the interventions.
Yeah, we tested out a couple different interventions, and the ones that we tested are not necessarily the ones that are going to be built. We just tested them on different widths of streets and streets that had different grade profiles and speeds so that we could see which ones were more effective. And we have that before and after data. But the options that we tested and that were fairly popular in those neighborhood walks that you were on, Jeff, were, like Jojo mentioned, the narrowing of the street from the outside in. Also an island in the center of the street so that the traffic goes around it. And then another option that's been discussed for a couple of streets that was popular on a couple of streets, but not on others, was kind of a meander, which Jojo had a picture of, where you move to the right and then you move to the left and then you come back to the center. And all of those elements have the effect of slowing down traffic because they require you to pay more attention. And there's something in your way, something to navigate, rather than just a straight shot for 2 blocks all the way down the street. The exact designs that will be applied at the different locations on each of those 6 streets, however, have not been determined, and that's what we'll send out in the posted letter pretty soon here.
Great, thank you, Tom. We know that if we give you some orange cones and hay bales, you can do a lot of magic.
Oh yeah.
Watch out, Jojo. You might end up with a roundabout.
I was going to say something about the whale, but I decided to.
Yeah.
Different agenda
we don't
topic.
Talk about whales. But this is a great example, and ELPCO as a community organization can provide support contacts for any neighborhood that is interested in pursuing a project like this. Obviously, it takes a lot of effort, as we've seen, but it is doable. We can write letters, we can connect you to the city, we can do a lot to make a project like this move forward. So many of us use the Mcclellan Trail, even if we don't live in your exact neighborhood, so we appreciate the efforts you're taking, and we look forward to the final results.
Thanks for having us.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to our next panel discussion, and that is about solar panels and home battery storage and electric vehicles, all 3 combined. I thought Michael came up with a very clever title for the presentation, ELPCO Solar Panel Discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael Olosi, who's ELPCO's at-large member, recently joined our board, and has put together this excellent panel and a bunch of questions. We are running a little bit behind time, Michael. So if you could speed things along, your presenters could move through. We'll just try to cover as many topics as we can, but do appreciate everything you've done.
Great. So I'll introduce the panelists real quick. So we have Kate Bowman, if you want to give a wave there, from Utah Clean Energy, and she's a renewable energy program manager there. And then we have Scott Jones, who's an ELPCO resident, and he does technical solar sales at Creative Energies. And then Alejandro Puy, is that the right way to say it? I guess I should have asked you that before. He's an SLC resident with rooftop solar and a Tesla Powerwall. We're really excited to hear his experience. So let's dive right into the questions. And I apologize in advance. I gave you questions, but I will might abbreviate them a little so we can hustle along. So the first question is for Kate. So this one, what are the, I know that the rates have, the rebates have changed, the tax credits and incentives have changed over time. So what are the current federal and state rebates, tax incentives, and then what are the Rocky Mountain Power or other rebates? And when are those going to change next?
That's a great question. Thanks for having us. It's I find that it's more common than it ever has been, but it's still, folks have so many questions about it, especially when you add in battery storage. So I'm excited to hear more about that from Alejandro too. So there's a federal and a state tax credit for solar. The federal tax credit is currently 26% of the cost of the installation, and the Utah state tax credit is $1,200 this year. And both the federal and the state tax credits are stepping down over time. So in order to get those amounts, you do have to install by the end of 2021, and they both step down in 2022 and past that. And so I can actually send a link in the chat that shows the full step down of the tax incentives. But if it's something you've been thinking about, it's a really great time to do it now while the tax credits are a little bit higher. There used to be a utility incentive for solar about 5 years ago, but there isn't one any longer. And so those two tax credits are going to be the main thing to help you bring the upfront cost of installing down.
But you did say there's one for a battery.
Yeah, that's right. There's also a new not tax credit, but a new incentive from Rocky Mountain Power specifically for battery storage. And I can send a link to that as well. It's a little more complicated in terms of figuring out the pricing. There's an upfront incentive when you buy a battery and you enroll it in the program. And then there's an ongoing incentive each year that you participate in the program. And that one's a little different because it does actually allow Rocky Mountain Power to access and control your battery. And so the advantage is that they can use your battery during times when there's strain on the grid or there's high demand for electricity, and they can take advantage of all of these networks of home batteries to help produce energy and or use energy that's been stored by the batteries and keep costs low where they might otherwise have to purchase power at high costs. But they do have access to your battery, and so if you want it for backup and you want to know that it's fully charged in the event of an emergency, that might be something you want to think about. And Scott might have some more thoughts on that. It's still new. It's currently only available for one manufacturer. You can't use it on the Tesla Powerwall, for example. So it is a little more complicated to figure out, but it is available, and could be a pretty sizable amount if it works out for you.
So that's a perfect segue into net metering, because we're talking about power flows going in and out, right? So could you explain the changes to the net metering rates, and also how you might have to just give a brief bit on how net metering works?
Yeah, sure. So what net metering is net metering is the policy through which you connect your solar panels to the grid, and then you receive credit for any energy that you produce that you send back out to the grid. So when you have solar panels on your roof, they're generating energy whenever it's sunny outside. And if you're home and you're using electricity at your home or your business, then that electricity goes to power whatever you're doing in your house. If you're not home, or if you're generating more electricity than you're using, that power goes straight out to the grid and it goes to power, your next neighbor. And so what net metering is it's the policy through which Rocky Mountain Power gives you a credit for that energy sent to the grid. And so we actually no longer have true net metering in Utah. Net metering is a 1-for-1 exchange. So you send out 1 kilowatt hour, you get 1 kilowatt hour credit back. And last year, in November last year, we changed, Rocky Mountain Power changed to a new policy that's called the solar export credit. It's similar in some ways in that it gives you a credit when you export electricity to the grid, but that credit is now valued at a dollar amount rather than just a kilowatt hour that you can use whenever you want. And it also has a set value, which is about 5.5 to 6 cents, depending on the season. So when you export energy to the grid, you're getting a lower amount than you used to through net metering. But when you use energy on site, you're still avoiding purchasing energy from Rocky Mountain Power at the same retail price. And so when you go to figure out your savings, you do have to look at how much energy am I going to use on site, because when you produce solar and use it on site, you can avoid purchasing power from Rocky Mountain Power. And the retail rate for energy for a residential customer can be between like 9 and 12 cents. So there's a much higher value when you generate that and use it on site than when you export it and you only get 6 cents back. So that's something to, that a solar installer can help you look at your energy usage and work through what that might look like and what your savings could be. But that's what we've got in place currently.
Cool. So from there, I think we should jump to you, Scott, and talk. A lot of what Kate just said makes me wonder, how big should my solar system be? And how do people know how to size? I know I struggled with this when I was purchasing solar. Do I upsize? Do I go smaller? How do you know?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So really, upsize, downsize, my philosophy is just right size. You want to right size the system. You don't want to go overboard. You certainly don't want to go underboard. Every system is going to be custom built for the specific home, and everybody's roofs are different. Some folks have shade, some folks face south, some folks are east and west. So we want to take advantage of the more viable roof spaces first. We're talking about a rooftop mounted system, and see where we can find the right value. That might mean that the system offsets half of your energy profile, and it could mean that it offsets 100% and makes you net energy zero. With these policy changes that Kate did a super good job succinctly and accurately describing, if somebody's goal, if their primary motivation for going solar is to eliminate their power bill, under this new export credit rate that Rocky Mountain Power has now enacted, you might need to generate or build a system that offsets 130% of your needs to zero out the bill. You're still going to have an $8 a month minimum fee just for the benefit of being connected to the grid. But a system that large probably isn't the best financial investment. So as you get up above about 50% offset, you start to hit kind of the point of diminishing returns, where more of your solar energy is being pushed back to the grid and devalued, or you're being compensated at a lower rate. So, it's a case by case study. It really depends on the homeowner's goals, but usually around an 80% offset is kind of the sweet spot.
Okay. What if I'm planning to buy an EV? I mean, I think we're all going to be driving EVs sooner or later here. What if I'm going to add a hot tub, or I'm thinking I'm going to electrify my boiler?
Yeah, great question. So an electric vehicle on average, the typical homeowner that drives a vehicle might drive around 10,000 miles per year. If you're charging that electric vehicle exclusively at your residence, that has the potential to increase your energy load by about 3,500 kilowatt hours. So that's similar to adding a brand new hot tub or an air conditioning unit. They're all kind of around the same consumption range, right around 3,000 kilowatt hours or so. So that would equate to another 5 or 6 solar panels on the roof, you know, in a well-sited, shade-free, good southern orientation.
Hey, sorry, I had a intruder. Only 5.
And, you know, right sizing the system and looking at those, the addition of an EV, of a hot tub, any of those loads, a reputable contractor should be able to help provide some guidance and give you the right size.
So how much should I expect to pay for this system? I mean, I know there's no average, but is there a certain amount per square footage of my house, or is there some kind of rule of thumb?
Yeah. So the typical homeowner that we're seeing, and we do a lot of solar, residential solar here in this area, this neighborhood, is right around 5 to 6 kW. Certainly larger than that, and some smaller, but most probably come in right around 6 kW. And a good competitive price right now, we usually price systems as a cost per watt, would be under $3 a watt. So that would equate to, you know, if you look at a 6 kW system, to give you an idea of a physical size, that's probably 16 to 18 solar panels. And a good competitive price would be around $18,000 or lower. If you factor in the federal and state tax credits, your net out of pocket is about 12 grand. If you're looking at about a 5 kW system, you're talking about 14, 15 panels, and your net out of pocket should be right around 10 grand.
Now, I did want to ask about financing. You sent me some literature on something that looked pretty interesting. I know on my system, I just kind of lucked into a cool setup where I was doing a refi at the same time. And so I didn't have to pay any money out of pocket. So I just added it onto the back end of my mortgage. And I mean, my mortgage still went down, even adding solar because of the refi. Do you have any tips on financing programs like that, or the one you suggested?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So this is an area where you want to tread cautiously, because there's a lot of gotchas, and I've got to say, you know, the underbelly of this high growth industry has been that there's been a lot of guys out there in business of selling almost predatory loans. So you want to be careful. And it sounds to me like you took advantage of a home equity line of credit or a refinance, something like that, and that's an excellent way to do it. A lot of the clients we work with, if you just reach out to your own particular personal lending institution, credit union, bank, great rates right now. And that's a really good way to do it, that would avoid any of these upfront dealer fees that typically get rolled into some of these loans if the solar contractor is trying to sell you their financing product. And also no prepayment penalties is something to look out for. So yeah, a home equity line of credit or a mortgage refi where you can roll in the cost of a renewable or even green energy improvements would be a great way to go. At Creative Energies, we've never offered in-house financing. It just feels yucky, and I want to be able to sleep at night. So we do have a third-party lending institution that we feel really good about. They're a fellow B Corporation, certified B Corporation, and they specialize in green energy loans, and that's the Clean Energy Credit Union. And looks like we just put a link up here to the Clean Energy Credit Union for those folks that might be interested in it. But you know, whatever price the solar contractor comes and says, hey, here's what we're proposing the cost of the system is. If you go through the Clean Energy Credit Union, that cost remains the same. There's no origination fees. So that's a beautiful thing. And then you can feel good about that money coming from an organization that's investing their capital assets and good things that are good for the earth, essentially.
Now, batteries. How much more does that cost? How many people are getting batteries? And you know, what's the benefits, I guess?
Yeah, so tons of people are interested in batteries. I mean, the weak link in any renewable is the intermittency of the generation, right? And the inability to be able to store that energy. So that's where batteries really kind of fit that niche and round out the whole renewable energy so that it's available around the clock. Batteries are quite cost prohibitive right now. I'd say probably 75% or more people that are looking into solar right now are inquiring about batteries, and probably a quarter of those, 30% or so, are actually installing battery storage system with or without solar. The real inherent value of an energy storage system or a battery system is in emergency preparedness. So it's kind of this qualitative, what is the value to you of having peace of mind knowing that if we have an earthquake or another inland hurricane windstorm that knocks out power to the neighborhood, you being able to island and have solar on your roof and be your self-generating, self-perpetuating power plant that keeps the lights on. Really, that's where the value lies.
But
In
not time of use pricing?
There is no time of use pricing in Utah with solar. There's some experimental kind of riders that you can enroll in for time of use pricing. But if you have solar on your roof, they're mutually exclusive. So 99% or more folks don't have time of use pricing here in Utah. So there's really no rate arbitrage programming that the battery would apply. The battery would help offset the utility cost. So if time of use ever does come to Utah, and I strongly believe it's coming probably in the next 3 to 5 years, battery systems can certainly help do some of that cost shifting to avoid pulling energy from the grid during those peak demand hours where rates are really expensive. But even at that, we've looked at market rates in Hawaii, California, where rates are 35, 40 cents a kilowatt hour. I don't think we're ever going to see rates that high. And adding battery storage to even markets with that high of a time of use rate, by the time the battery finishes its life cycle, it might have paid for itself. So that's again why I go back to saying, really all the inherent value of a battery storage system is emergency preparedness or increasing your self-consumption, just knowing that you can feel good about consuming more of your solar energy on your own autonomous system.
Okay, thanks. So Alejandro, I want to hear about a battery in action and how you're liking it. If you can just kind of give us a little intro on how your system is set up with the solar and the battery.
I mean, the system is very seamless, right? There is nothing, even when the power goes out, and it happened a couple of times in very brief periods here since I had the battery, you don't realize that the power is out at all, at least with the system I have, because it's moving the electricity through the battery all the time. So if the power goes out, it just keeps on coming from the battery. So it's very seamless that way. So there is less, those like little quick off and on that sometimes happens when there's a storm, which I love not to have to deal with them. So there is that is one of the great benefits, and like Scott said, is one of the, it really is, there's not a price to me to have the peace of mind that I will have electricity in case of an emergency. I guess most of us experience a very traumatic 2020 for multiple reasons, but I actually had neighbors this last year that they came to charge some batteries when they were out of power. Some house batteries, some to charge their phones and whatnot. To me, I'm actually very happy. I only bought one because of, like said before, they're very pricey. My house could use two. So if I had if there was no power in the grid, I could not use the air conditioning, which I'm totally fine. If there's a disaster there, I'm fine not having air conditioning. I think that everybody will agree with us. But if I had two batteries, I could use the microwave, I guess, and the air conditioning. But so far, I'm actually very happy with it. It's very seamless. It's very pretty. I mean, my battery at least. I mean, they're all making very pretty batteries, I guess. So it's not an eyesore. There is nothing very bulky outside your house. It doesn't feel like an air conditioning unit or anything like that. So it just sits on the wall, and it has a light on the side, very Tesla-like, very fancy looking. But yeah, I'm very happy with it.
Okay. Now, how long does it last? You said your house could use two batteries. So is that half the day and then? if
Well,
you run a reduced load and kind of milk a few days out of it, or?
Well, it depends on how much you use, right? How much electricity you're using, right? How big is your system? And, you know, are you cooking a brisket in your microwave 45 minutes, which I don't know who will do that. But right, like that, those are the things that, you know, make a difference on how long your battery will last. But in my case, my battery lasts all night, and I'm usually out of power by 8 in the morning. And by 8 in the morning, it's already bright and it's sort of charging already. So, you know, I almost have like a continuous amount of energy. Basically, I'm self-powered, so I don't even use the you know, the Rocky Mountain power at all, almost. Obviously, if there's an overcast day, right, like if it's very cloudy, those things do make a difference. And I also wanted to make sure that, and I mentioned this, someone mentioned this, but the storm watch system, some of these batteries have it, mine does. When they connect, they are connected to the internet. So if there is a storm watch coming, which happened not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, the battery changes itself, and it basically makes sure that it's totally charged 100% by the time that the storm is here, to make sure that you have, you know, 100% charged battery. And is always charging it basically until you need the electricity from the battery. So I thought that was a great feature. It gives you, again, a peace of mind in case of an emergency.
Cool. So is there anything you do differently making your system now? Or is there anything else, you know, that you didn't expect to happen with the solar panels? Like I don't, my upstairs of my house gets really hot. I haven't tested in the summer yet, but I'm hoping that it's going to intercept some heat to keep it a little cooler. You know, I'm just wondering if you've experienced any kind of weird externalities like that.
No, I mean, I have a, you know, this is a 120-year-old home, so I had a lot of concerns about putting these heavy objects on my roof without, you know, doing some sort of research about is the roof is going to collapse on top of me one day. And you know, the people that came and installed it, they did a quick look, and they were like very experienced about this. You know, the concerns I had were basically solved ahead of installation, and since then I have not had any issues really.
So and then Kate and Scott, what's next? You know, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I know that there's a push to get off greenhouse gases. So having electric boilers, that's one thing I feel like has not been addressed much. Is there anything else that you know of that we haven't talked about?
You know, I think some things that I'm really excited about that are becoming more common in other, you know, utility areas are new options for your appliances that are electric and that are more efficient than, you know, what you would traditionally have, and also that are can be connected to the grid in a way that you can actually use them kind of like a smart appliance. You know, so for example, I mean, one small example of this is there's currently an energy efficiency incentive available through Rocky Mountain Power if you have air conditioning, where they put a small device on your air conditioner. It's called the Cool Keeper program. And during times when everybody's air conditioning is just cranking and it's hot out, they can actually go through and cycle them. And the idea is to turn it off for like a minute at a time, so you don't notice it. But they can avoid having everybody's air conditioning going at the exact same time. And you know, that's good because it helps keep the cost down. But also you look at situations like in California or Texas where they had outages because there was just so much demand and the grid couldn't keep up. And I think that's going to get more and more important to have these, you know, a smart, flexible grid, so that we don't end up in these situations where the grid's not flexible enough to meet our needs and you have problems with that. So the Cool Keeper program, that's something you can do right now. But I think if you're looking at replacing any major appliance, it's a really good time to look at what options are out there. Heat pumps used to be they used to not work very well in cold climates, but there's now a cold climate, you know, heat pump that you can use to heat your home in the winter. And the cool thing is you can also use it to cool your home in the summer. So if you don't have air conditioning, then you can do both. And it's way more efficient than, you know, other types of heating, especially if you have electric resistance heating. That's not super common here. But if you have electric resistance heating and you swap it out for a heat pump, you might end up saving money, you know, just outright because of the cheaper costs. So that's one thing to look at. And some utilities are starting to look at a smart electric water heater. So the idea there is that you want hot water when you want hot water. And if everybody comes home and uses their water at the same time, that creates spikes on the grid. But if you have a really well insulated water heater, then you can actually set it up to have your water superheated in the middle of the day when, you know, more of us have solar, there's more solar on the grid and energy's free and abundant. And you can superheat that water heater. And then that way, when you come home, you don't need to use energy to keep it hot. It's already hot from the middle of the day. And so we can kind of smooth out energy usage on the grid. So I think there's lots of cool things, you know, that are coming in the next few years. And if you are replacing a major appliance, it's super, you know, annoying to have to do that, but also, you know, always, I think, before kind of replacing it with what you had before, it's worth thinking about, or, you know, asking if there's something more efficient or, you know, different that you could be looking into.
Okay. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I would fully echo everything that Kate just said there. Some of these smart home and smart energy management devices like the electric water heater, you know, that's a great way to mitigate export credits of solar and prevent Rocky Mountain Power from taking their slice of the pie, if you will. So rather than exporting, you can certainly divert some of that surplus solar into that hot water heater, store it rather than using gas. So a lot of these, you know, smart home software management stuff, I think, is really exciting. Some of the other things I'm really looking forward to is perhaps a carbon tax. You know, the Department of Environmental Quality, we're hoping, will be tasked to create a value, to a carbon tax value, essentially. And one of the lesser known things about renewable energy systems is they generate renewable energy credits, and perhaps if those are ever worth money on the open market, that could be a good way, a good incentive to help fund your own personal renewable energy system on your home. So that's something to kind of stay tuned into. Another thing that really excites me is this interplay with electric vehicles, which are becoming more and more ubiquitous, and manufacturers starting to open up that stored energy technology to become bi-directional. And that concept is known as vehicle to grid or vehicle to home, V2G for short, or V2H, where essentially your battery storage system, like a Tesla Powerwall, is your vehicle. It's just on wheels. If you can dock that car to your house, charge it with solar, use it to charge your home during a grid failure, or just to reduce strain on the grid, I think that's the next huge evolution that we'll see coming.
I didn't realize you could do that, or you're saying that can't happen yet.
Not yet, not in the States, but it's Nissan is doing it in both Australia and Japan. They have V2G, V2H that they've released with their architecture. So, you know, we've seen a reverse teardown of a Tesla automobile, and they're set up they're pretty brilliant the way that they did it. They've set up the battery system in 3 phases. So you could use a fleet of Teslas essentially to run a 3-phase industry building, wow. Commercial enterprise, or it's triple redundant for a single phase grid. So the architecture and the design is there. It's just a matter of the manufacturers releasing that energy and allowing it to go the other direction to power homes. It's just probably just a firmware release, really.
So I know we're about out of time. Quick thing, Kate, I know you wanted to give a plug on energy efficiency improvements. You kind of touched on it, but do I do the energy efficiency improvements before my solar, after?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And we talked about it a little bit, but I always like to make sure we mention when talking about solar that, you know, if you haven't done everything you can to improve efficiency first, then you're wasting money when you install solar to provide energy that you could have just avoided. And so changing out your furnace filter, for example, is not as exciting as installing solar, but things like that can have, you know, a big impact when you add them up. If you haven't replaced all the lights in your home with LEDs, there's huge energy savings potential there. And there are incentives available from Rocky Mountain Power for buying like an Energy Star appliance, for a smart thermostat if you don't have a smart thermostat already. And so definitely don't neglect the energy efficiency stuff that you can be doing around the house too.
All right, well, thank you. I thought that was great. There were a lot of great answers to questions in there. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Feel free to put them in the chat or come off mute. We really appreciate you taking the time to educate us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Michael, Scott, Kate, and Alejandro. What a great discussion. Last month, we learned we're all basically living in homes worth a pile of money from our real estate panel. This month, we learned that we're living in the electron age. And the idea that your Tesla could power your home or your business and not the other way around is pretty cool. So thank you, really cool. I apologize that the chat is not able to be copied. It's a leftover security measure from when we had things a little bit more locked down. I will get that chat up and kind of isolate all the solar panel responses and links and put that up on our Facebook page and our next ELPCO newsletter so everyone can get it. You can also screen capture it if you want to. I apologize, we're talking about the 23rd century and we're basically, we can't copy paste on our own computer, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. I appreciate the patience from Luke Allen from Salt Lake City Public Lands. He's up next. And so thank you, Luke. Please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Like Jason said, my name is Luke Allen. I am the Community Outreach Events and Marketing Manager for Salt Lake City's Public Lands divisions. I've been in this role about 1.5 years, and I think this is my first time actually being at a East Liberty Park Community Organization meeting, so it's great to meet a lot of you for the first time here virtually. I'm here to give an update on our Reimagine Nature Salt Lake City Public Lands Master Plan. I know we're running a little short on time, so I'll go really, really quickly, and then after I'm done, I'll gladly answer any questions in the chat. So I'm going to try to share my screen here really quickly. All right, so our Public Lands Director, Kristen Riker, I believe she attended your September 2020 meeting last fall and gave an introduction to this Reimagine Nature Salt Lake City Public Lands. So hopefully between that presentation and what we've been putting out on social media and on a lot of on-site signage at our parks, hopefully this isn't the first time you've heard about this plan. But if it is, let me just quickly explain that Salt Lake City is developing a new master plan that will be the guiding document for the city's 4 public lands divisions over the next probably 20 years. So those 4 divisions are the Trails and Natural Lands Division, the City Parks Division, the Urban Forestry Division, and as of January 1st of this year, the City Golf Division also moved underneath the public lands umbrella. So you know, what this plan ends up being will ultimately be the guide for those 4 divisions for the next probably 20 years. So this plan is being done in 3 phases. We're currently in the middle of the 2nd phase. The first phase took place last fall. And during that first community engagement phase last fall, we engaged with about 7,000 people in Salt Lake City. We had an online survey that about 3,700 people took. With help from the University of Utah students, we conducted about 600 intercept interviews. So the students would show up basically randomly at parks and trails and talk to people and survey them about what they envision for the future of public lands in Salt Lake City. Also with those students and with our public lands staff, we hosted around 20 pop-up events where we gave out free ice cream and trail snacks at a variety of parks all around the city. So we spoke with around 2,300 people at those events. And we also conducted a number of focus groups with stakeholders and traditionally underrepresented populations. And we gave 17 community presentations, including community council presentations. So overall, between those 7,000 people that we engaged with throughout that process, we gathered a ton of data, both qualitative and quantitative. The survey had a few open-ended responses. So between that and all the email comments we received, we had over 10,000 comments that we read and categorized and sorted into different themes. And we also combined that with the more quantitative data that we got through the survey. And we came up with what we're ultimately presenting now during our second engagement window. So based on all of that feedback we got from the community, we came up with 5 overarching goals that are tentatively part of this master plan. And I'll talk more about these goals on the following slide. And we came up with 10 transformative projects, or just 10 big ideas that support those goals, which I'll also talk about more in a moment. So those 5 goals that we came up with as a result of that feedback were, sorry, let me plug my computer in. It gave me the battery low warning. Okay, first, connect. So the public really wants to see connected, accessible green spaces in Salt Lake City. The second goal is welcome. People want to see active and inclusive spaces in Salt Lake City. Third is protect. The residents want the city to commit to protecting the green spaces that we currently have available in Salt Lake City. Fourth is grow. Overwhelmingly, people want to see more parks and trails and natural areas in Salt Lake City. And finally is sustain. People want to see a commitment to environmental health and sustainability moving forward. And so, like I said, we've also developed 10 transformative projects or big ideas to support those goals. I'm going to go through these rather quickly, so I apologize that it'll feel rushed, but let me just say that there's a longer pre-recorded presentation on our project website, which is reimaginatureslc.com. So when I'm done, I'll drop that in the chat. So although I'm going to go through these very quickly, you can watch that longer presentation to dig deeper into each of these. And there's also a survey available on that site where you can provide feedback about each of these 10 ideas. So the first idea is just 5 minutes from here. So this involves a wayfinding and signage campaign that makes it easier to explore nearby parks, trails, and public spaces. Second idea is connect the mountains to the lake. This would involve completing missing links and regional trails and invest in greenways to enhance nature and creeks within the city. Third is reimagine neighborhood parks, which would involve transforming parks into vibrant community spaces that empower residents to contribute to their neighborhood identity. Fourth is coming soon to a park near you, which means helping our parks, large and small, come alive with activity and events throughout the year. Fifth is meet me at the river, which would involve investing in projects and maintenance along the Jordan River Parkway that will promote equity, access, scenic beauty, diverse recreation, and healthy ecology along the parkway. Sixth is tell our stories, which would involve revealing past and present stories from our diversity of experiences that have shaped the valley, giving focus to underrepresented and Indigenous people. Seventh is downtown comes alive outside, meaning we try to increase the provision of green and active spaces downtown that will contribute to the livability and economic vitality. Eighth is grow our urban forests, which would mean building public awareness to show new tree stewardship that allows urban forestry to plant trees in all publicly owned landscapes. Ninth is welcome to the green, which would be inviting appropriate alternative uses of our public golf courses for greater public benefit. And 10th and finally is put the environment first. So how can we cultivate more biological diversity in parks and natural areas? So again, I know I sped through those and I know I didn't touch on any of the potential projects, but I really encourage you all to visit the website, reimaginatureslc.com, to watch the longer presentation that talks more in depth about each of these. And there's a survey where you can provide your feedback about each of these ideas. So in terms of next steps, this second community engagement window will go for about 2 more weeks. And then we'll close this survey and dig through the data once again. And then at that point, we'll have what we need to essentially prepare a draft master plan that will then present to the public as part of the third community engagement window this fall. So again, there's the site, reimaginatureslc.com. I'll drop that in the chat here in a moment. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions in the chat. Jason, if you want to open it up for questions right now, that's fine as well. I just know you're pressed for time, so it may be better for me to just do it in the chat.
No worries. Thank you, Luke. And your presentation was beautiful. It showed us all these amazing photos of Salt Lake City that were just like, wow, this place is so cool to look at. So thanks for inspiring us with your photo quality in addition to the information you provided. We've been seeing these stencils and signs everywhere we go around Salt Lake City, kind of talking about this master plan, including, a lot in ELPCO. Any questions for Luke about the master plan, about any particular parks or areas that you're interested in? Doesn't look like we have any questions. Just to remind folks, what would be the timeline for this finally being ended, or sort of the end of the public engagement project, and when we'll see sort of the final results?
Sure. So you have until May 7th to fill out the survey that's available on the website, and then we'll spend the summer digging through that data and creating a draft final master plan that we'll present to the public this fall.
Fantastic. Thanks for reminding us. We'll put those links up and make sure folks know about it. Appreciate you checking back in. We always, we have the word park in our name, East Liberty Park. And so we really do like the open spaces and public places in Salt Lake City and around us. Sometimes we forget how great it is to live here. So it's good to be reminded. We have 2 more agenda items, including the farewell to Darrell High, which we've got some special video tributes and presentations. But first, let's go to Tim Cosgrove from the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office for an update about what's happening in the Mayor's Corner.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Tim Cosgrove, Mayor's Community Liaison. It's nice to be with you. Thanks, Luke. That was a great presentation. I just wanted to start off by thanking all of you for your continued support and your continued efforts to wear a mask during this time. I know we're all experiencing COVID burnout and springtime. We just all want to get out and enjoy the weather, but our mayor, along with the backing of the city council, has signed an emergency proclamation. This was Wednesday, April 7th, continuing to require individuals within the city to wear a mask or a face covering. Our numbers are going down this last week. They went down 4%, but because of our population, we're still at high risk. We want to make sure that we're getting all people able to receive vaccines on the east side as well as the west side, and making it equal distribution. Where we all live in the same community, it's vitally important that we continue wearing masks. I can put that proclamation in the link, or I can answer any questions if anybody has any. You might have also received this week, we passed out the mayor's she kicked off our new community organization micro grant opportunity. A lot of our community councils participated in this last year to expand their community councils to do outreach during the time of COVID, helping with technological assistance, Zoom. And we're happy to kick that off again this year. The micro grant applications are due by May 7th, and you can receive between $50 and $1,500. And the concentration this year, the funds should be used for continuing to communicate with the public to help grow our participation and representation from your community through equitable means, and then help also boost neighborhood pride and connectivity. So there's some exciting things in there, opportunities like adopting alleyways. And this funding is separate and in addition to the ACE funding, the Arts, Culture, and Events grant that will be coming out. So make sure you participate in both. I also wanted to bring back to the attention that we still have rent relief assistance available. That's available at least until the June 30th, I believe is the the open date. So if you have friends, family members, neighbors that are still in need of rent relief assistance, make sure that they apply for that, and I will get that link in the chat as well. Oh, we did get a new urban forestry committee liaison. So Megan Roy from the urban forestry department division within the Parks and Lands Open Space Department will be the new liaison for East Liberty Park. And if you're interested, you can invite her to come speak at a future community council meeting. She'll be happy to share all the things that we can do to love and protect and grow and provide safety, security for our trees. Given that today is Earth Day. And then let's see. Oh, the mayor had appointed, you may have heard the mayor had appointed council member Andrew Johnston as our new city director for homelessness and policy outreach. And we're quite excited to have him in our office. He'll be taking the role that David Litvack had worked on before, but with his area of expertise and knowledge, we're really excited to have him in on our team and looking forward to new and additional ways that we can approach helping our persons experiencing homelessness. And I know the city recorder came out today, and she will be announcing the process for accepting applications for that District 2 vacancy as well. Any questions for me?
We did have one question that came through on the chat, Tim, and that was, the micro grants could be used for alley adoptions or alley cleanups. Could you describe what that is and any experience that you've seen with that?
Yeah, we're actually, this is new, so we don't have a pilot or something that's happened prior to this opportunity. So this is an opportunity for the community councils to identify and look at ways of activating the alleyways within the community. There's a lot of what we would call low-hanging fruit, where it could be something as simple as bringing in a community together, and with a little bit of resources from the city to help that pilot to beautify that alleyway, make it more user-friendly, community, neighborhood-friendly, whether it's planting some or building some planting some garden boxes or planting some trees. I know Liberty Wells has recently proposed an idea that they will be having the Department of Engineering coming to look at with transportation. So it's just really additional ways of utilizing and beautifying your alleyways. They've been used for years in delivering ice when we had ice boxes for our refrigerators, coal for our furnaces. There's still a lot of public alleyways and private alleyways. So this would be more like a bifurcated system that would look at doing them separately, but they'd have to be a different approach, and just making it more. There was $200,000 appropriated from the mayor and city council in last year's budget that's set aside for alleyways. It's through transportation. And that money will be looked at for repaving, and it's not going to cover maybe 4 alleyways citywide. So there's a look to do it with equity. But the hope is that with some creative ideas and having some successful pilot projects, that this can be looked at as a standard in moving forward for setting up additional funding for alleyways, because we don't have a maintenance fund for alleyways now as it is.
Thank you for explaining that. And I think we were all inspired a bit by the Mcclellan Trail neighborhood project, where neighbors got together to really change the look and feel and safety of their neighborhood. And certainly with the micro grants, or even with some funding from ELPCO, perhaps we're thinking about doing our own ELPCO grants for neighborhoods. We could, neighborhoods could take a bit of an improvement project on their own. So we're welcome to hear from anybody who's interested in that, as is the city through the micro grants. So reach out, get those ideas moving. It's a good time to dig in the ground, right? It's not so frozen anymore.
Oh, one other thing, Jason, if I can, the Governor Cox had issued an executive order back last month with extreme drought conditions for 90% of Utah. And the mayor had also declared a stage 1 advisory water conservation plan. I'm going to post the link. Our public utilities department has come up with some instructional videos and some support challenging everyone. And it was Daryl, our own very Daryl, who spoke about his experience serving in the Navy and having to, when they were limited with water, and it was such a scarce resource, serving in a submarine, and how he had to just turn the water on, let it sprinkle a little bit, lather up, and then turn the water off and lather up, and then turn the water back on to rinse it off. Our own public utilities department has a challenge for everyone to save 7 gallons per day. So I'll put that in on the link as well.
Thank you, Tim. Daryl, I think you served on aircraft carriers, but if you served on submarines, that is even more amazing. But thank you, Tim, for that. And any other questions for Tim? I do have a couple quick announcements to follow up on that before we go. You mentioned Andrew Johnston leaving the Salt Lake City Council to join the mayor's office. That creates a vacancy for Council District 2. And actually this year we have elections or vacancies in Council District 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, which is unprecedented to have this much action sort of in terms of elections and vacancies. Plus, whoever is selected for District 2 will be up for re-election in November, because Councilmember Johnston had not gotten halfway through his term. And that November election is going to be ranked choice voting. For the first time, we're going to have ranked choice voting in Salt Lake City. We're not going to have a primary in August like we normally do to winnow it down. All the candidates who are allowed to run, hit all the requirements, will be on the ballot in November. And you will be able to select your first choice, second choice, third choice. We'll probably have a meeting about that a little bit later, about what that means for your ballot, how to vote, what it means for the campaigns. But ELPCO will also probably be working with other community councils to host some candidate debates. Not this summer. We actually can wait until the fall when we get a little bit closer to the election, which is good, because that means people will be paying a bit more attention to that. So look for more about ranked choice voting in these upcoming elections at future meetings. It's going to be pretty exciting, I think. Any other questions for Tim? Thank you very much for those updates from the mayor's office. There's a lot going on. We see posts from the mayor and her staff all the time. You guys are very busy and active, so thank you for doing that. Let's head to the tribute to Daryl High, which is why many of you are here. Daryl, thank you for being here tonight and being here for 12 years. Just one interesting tip before we begin is that Daryl first moved to ELPCO in 1978, I think, which was the year I was born. I was not quite as active in political issues at that point. I was more of a, just observer. So we're talking about decades of service that Daryl has had in our community, and for the past 12 years as ELPCO chair. Several people well known to ELPCO have submitted videos that I'm now going to play in tribute to Daryl. Let's just see if I can do this share screen right. And let's see if we can get it done. Yeah. And let's take it away. There'll be a couple of people that you recognize, some a little from the olden days of ELPCO.
Daryl, hi.
Oh,
You have
we're
been a
not
friend
working.
to
No
me
sound,
and
right?
to thousands.
There was no sound there, was there?
Yes.
Could you, was there sound or no sound?
Sound.
There was sound. Oh,
Yeah, there was
okay,
sound.
I'm sorry. There was no sound for me. Okay. Well, let me try that again. And I think I know what I have to do now. There we go. Bear with me for a sec.
Daryl, hi. You have been a friend to me and to thousands of ELPCO residents over the decades that you've invested volunteering to improve our neighborhoods and communities. Salt Lake City is grateful to have you and have had you as a co-chair of the ELPCO organization since its inception. I know we'll still see you around the neighborhood a lot, but I wish you and Louise many happy travels with whatever free time you're able to glean from your retirement from the ELPCO co-chair position.
Hello, Daryl and all from ELPCO. This is Heidi Preuss, formerly involved in ELPCO and the Street Festival. Welcome to my retirement place. Actually, this is my parents' home in Laconia, New Hampshire. I hear, Daryl, you are retiring this year, and I'm to tell a story or something I remember of you. I remember early mornings on Street Festival morning, moving barricades with your trailer as we are trucking things around, barricades and garbage cans, and all the hours that we did moving things around on our own. Boy, things sure have changed over the years for ELPCO. I am still a member, thank you. I will be out there sometime this summer, and I will definitely check in personally and say hello. Anyway, hello everybody, and Daryl, good rafting and good beekeeping. Bye.
Michael Cohn here, Daryl. I'll be brief, something neither you nor I are very good at. You literally became the co-chair of ELPCO because you were running around trying to do the job freelance while I was already regretting having taken the job to start with. Practically a perfect match made not in heaven, but in the realms of inquiry basement. The plan became to make ELPCO financially viable, which has been a success. And that success was never more visible one Saturday at the Street Festival, where the biggest, happiest kid in the children's tent was Daryl High. You've always been a steady and regular voice for ELPCO in the city, which is no easy job. ELPCO has had a long history, being pushed around as a neighborhood. Once drug-riddled, redlined, not being the beneficiary of city projects, the residents have always had to do for themselves. Later, East Central Community Council wanted to annex ELPCO, or at least get all or part of the revenue stream from the Street Festival. Not happening on Daryl's watch. Daryl helped expand ELPCO, along with annexing an ignored part of the East Central area, expanding ELPCO's borders to now include over 8,000 households. Now, to my knowledge, Daryl has never been drug-riddled, redlined, or annexed, but somebody somewhere maybe knows something. So the time has come for you, Daryl, to get out of the way of the people who want and should be in charge and responsible for making ELPCO the place they want it to be. Like they say in Draper, you done did good, Daryl. And everybody should thank you for the hours and days of devotion and care you gave to the community. I certainly do. My final message to you, Daryl, is on my t-shirt.
Hey, Daryl, I hear you're stepping down from being the co-commander of the ELPCO. I just want to take a moment to thank you for all your service. I really enjoyed working with you with our work with ELPCO. I remember driving you around to planning commission meetings with your walker when you broke your foot. That was always fun. I only have one regret. You know, that offer from the detective to tase you, I wish you'd tried it out. It would have been fun. Any rate, take care and goodbye. Hey.
Daryl, hi. Incredible. 12 years of serving your community as a leader. Very impressive. Very sad to see you go. You've done great things for the community and you've been a great mentor to me. I appreciate all that you do and I hope that you'll stay in touch. Thank you so much, Daryl. Daryl.
Hey, Daryl. Well, I can't imagine what you're going to do in your third career that could surpass all you've done and given to ELPCO and our community in this, your second career. So anyway, it has always been a joy to work with you, whether it was at ELPCO or in our other interactions. You just have such a kind and gentle way, and your voice always plays in my mind with your smile and your heartwarming laugh. So you've left a definite impression on all of us. All has been well with our community, whether it was you and Michael serving as co-chairs or now you and Jason. And so I just wish you the best. You'll be missed, and I know that whatever road you take next, you'll continue to contribute in great ways. So wishing you the best. Good luck, Daryl. Hey.
This is a, let me step back. This is a tribute sent in by Ellen Parrish, former West Emerson representative from ELPCO. She talked about the beginning of her involvement with ELPCO, reiterating sort of the work that Daryl has done to protect ELPCO, make it financially secure, and build it. She talks about just how Daryl's personality has really infused the community council in the work that is done here. And so Ellen lives in Tucson now, but we really appreciate her writing in. We'll make this presentation available also on the Community Council Facebook page. And one last thing I wanted to share was that, Daryl, there is a gift in the mail to you. It is a wall hanging, a wooden carved wall hanging with a list of all the different Salt Lake City neighborhoods. And of course, in recognition of how you made East Liberty Park bigger and better and vibrant, we made them make East Liberty Park the biggest name on the board at the bottom there. So this is being created by a craftsman out on the East Coast. He'll be sending it along, and we will be glad to deliver this to you as soon as it arrives. And you know, the reason East Liberty Park is big is because of the work that you have done for it. So we are really glad to gift this to you. Gonna stop sharing. Can everyone see we're all back? Okay. Let me switch back.
Can you hear me okay? I'm not on my headset.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, Daryl, you saw quite a few folks there, some old faces, some newer faces, saying how much they appreciated what you've done. I hope that does a little bit to let you know the impact you've had in this community for 12 years and for many years longer.
Well, Jason, thank you. This was completely unexpected. It's been a privilege to have been part of this community, and I will still be a part of the community. Again, thank you.
We stand on your shoulders, Daryl. The many things that we can do as ELPCO right now are testimony to what you have built into this community and attracted the people to participate in this council. And you know, there's a lot of history that we need to remember, and thank you for putting it together and making it happen. I'll be glad to share the presentation with you and your family so you can you know, see it more clearly and keep it, and maybe get back at Michael Cohen for some of those things that he said. Sounds typical. I miss him, and that definitely helped. Any other comments from our community members here, family members that want to chime in?
I wanted to, Jason, just we also have a certificate that we'll be presenting for Daryl from the mayor's office, appreciating him and all of his work for ELPCO community. And it's been a joy and a pleasure personally for me in working with Daryl. It was always nice to come into the Tracy Aviary common room and be welcomed. He's so compassionate, so caring, and such the fine gentleman. Every meeting, it was the pleasure of the meeting to always be welcomed and just appreciated by Daryl, and really enjoyed working with him. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. You know, it's interesting. We've come a long way. We used to meet in the basement of the old historic 31st Ward, now in Iglesia de Cristo Church, with 4 or 5 people. We moved to the Tracy Aviary. Jason's done a terrific job of transitioning us here to Zoom meetings, where our outreach and those who watch us carefully, who love this community and want to continue. It's been wonderful to be part of that. If Detective Meinzer is still on board, though, we talk about street racing. I do need to report Jason's sons for sidewalk racing and their tricycles up and down Michigan. It's a great legacy for our neighborhood.
They stay under the speed limit, I promise.
They're great kids.
Well, any other comments and tributes to Daryl? It looks like we have quite a few of your family members here, Daryl. That's wonderful. I'm glad they could join us. It's like we just scratched the surface here of the last couple of years that we've interacted, but there's so much that you've been involved with in our community councils. So we look forward to your continued involvement, advice, mentorship, and we know East Liberty Park will be a part of you. And of course, we got the festival coming up in September. So we won't ask you to haul things around anymore, as Heidi talked about. Hopefully you'll be using that for your whitewater rafts, but we hope to see you there, and we'll enjoy any advice you can send our way. Great. Well, that concludes our meeting. Tim, thank you for that certificate from the mayor's office. That's fantastic to have. Daryl will deliver that gift to you as soon as it arrives. We got to make sure they spell ELPCO right, of course. And we have our next meeting on May 27th. We are hoping to make it a political fest with many elected officials attending, including perhaps the mayor, if it can work with her schedule. And we hope you will join us then on May 27th. That is the next ELPCO meeting. Until then, Daryl, would you like to do the honors?
Traditional Navy, we wish you fair winds and following seas. Have a good evening.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a good night.